This week on Chateau Capers, Arwen becomes a mimic. We're making great gains in the back kitchen.
I had an idea!
We turn the tables on the Chateau DIY film crew, and work starts on the swimming pool, but is instantly threatened by a storm of biblical proportions. A few days ago, the earthworks company dropped by to survey the site and asked us to shift the pool kit to make room for their big machines. The snag? There's no start date yet. Thanks to a wet May and some staffing shortages, we're left wondering if the pool would even be dug this summer. We moved it inside the orangery, out of the sun and out of harm's way. We'd been asked to trim back the large bay tree by the entrance to the pool area so that the lorry and digger could get past. It was time to dust off the chainsaw. I decided that cutting the tree with a pruning saw would be better exercise, actually. Gives me a chance to work on my beach board, you know. With the chainsaw frustratingly out of action and the temperature getting hotter than a naughty fondle behind the bike sheds, I thought I'd trim the tree before I burst into flames. Sometime later, dripping like a buttered crumpet, there was only one thing left to do. Down tools, drop my drawers and dive in. I'll preserve my modesty and what's left of your imagination. Speaking of oddly shaped things in full bloom, this cucumber's growing nicely, although this one's dressing to the right. We're starting to get some lovely purple tomatoes too. But back to the main story. With the heat outside becoming oppressive, we were happy to have indoor jobs to keep us busy. I could no longer find any excuses to avoid starting the tiling. I don't mind tiling, I quite enjoy it, but I hate mixing the adhesive and the cleaning up afterwards. The tiles were going on well, but the tiler was making a hell of a mess, so Jane stepped in to clean up before the adhesive set. I think we make quite a good team. The old tiles from this kitchen were still in place around the window, and I had this bright idea to keep them there, a sort of homage to a previous time. There was a broken tile at the front, which I planned to replace with some of the leftovers from when my brother-in-law David helped to strip the walls. I was using a rotary tool with the tile cutting bit to cut away the grout from the tiles so I could lever it out. Great plan, eh? I thought so. Once the grout was removed, I levered up the tile. Sadly, the whole bloody lot came up, so I changed my mind. The window will now not have old tiles left in place. We still have several stacks of these tiles, so if we feel we want to use them elsewhere in the future, we can. After that brief waste of time, I started tiling the other wall. This wall has two windows and I'll be tiling up to the wall cupboard, so it'll be the trickier of the two. I also want to get the extractor fan hole bricked up before finishing the tiling. I don't have enough tile edging trim to go around both windows, which is another reason the job can't be finished yet. So for now, it will have to wait. A few days previously, I'd wanted to have another go at ensuring the back stairs were free of wood-boring insects. This time I got a hypodermic needle and squirted a drop of the insecticide into each and every hole in the steps. This was not a fast job. It's done now, so hopefully there will be no more munching. They say never work with children or animals. Well, the kittens are both. You turn the camera on and they drop a scene stealer in the flower bed. You can see the concentration in her eyes.
Arwen was full of surprises, though, when she made a nest in an old tyre and started mimicking the nesting birds in the barn. Fortunately, those Tweety pies were too wily for this budding Sylvester.
We're just trying to weed along this wall here, partly to make it look nice, but also because the swimming pool ends sort of there, and the pipework for the pump room, which is going to be through this wall in the corner of the barn, we're going to have a trench dug here. So we want it nice and neat before it's all dug, so that when it's put back down, it's not full of weeds and things that are just going to grow straight up. So we're doing a little bit of weeding in the hope that we can make it look a bit nice and get us ahead of ourselves for when all the work starts, which might be this week. We didn't know for sure it would be this week. We were waiting for a confirmation call. We got on with it all the same in case we got lucky. It was mostly bramble and spiders, so it was definitely a job for thick gloves. Well, it's starting to look a lot better. Most of the weeds are either pulled up by the root or chopped right back down to the ground, and when we have a chance we'll be able to start digging out roots. You can still see ivy on the walls because it's not all coming off easily, but all of the ivy is now pulled down. The roots, well, maybe not all the roots, but the branches, as it were, are snapped off down to ground level, so that'll all just die off and we'll scrape it off when we get the chance. But it sort of looks like there used to be a bed there. So maybe we'll reinstate it as a bed one day. It's always going to have quite a bit of shade with the olive tree. But it's a good start. It's absolutely roasting and super humid today, so it's probably, I suppose it's not that hot. It's probably about 26, 27 degrees today, I think. But it's very humid. And we've got Chateau DIY turning up any minute, and we're both soaked with sweat. So it might be time for a shower. When the Chateau DIY crew turned up, we expected lights, camera, action, not a high-stakes battle. But when downtime struck, Jane challenged the team to a sticky standoff. Who could peel off old shelf covering the fastest? Tension was high, spirits were higher. Welcome to Shelf Wars. The peel awakens. So how's it going, Dom?
Well, it's okay. We've decided to put the camera down and show the Shetlands how it's done. It's not working very well.
Well, it does look like Jane is in the lead at the minute.
Not for long.
Is this satisfying, Goosey Lucy?
This is an incredibly satisfying process.
It's more fun than filming, that's why we're not filming it anymore.
We've got the breakage.
Oh.
This is the nearest I'll ever come, by the way, Rory, to owning Chateau. And that's fine with me.
Oh, looks like Jane is about to win.
Oh my god, the Shetland! It's true. The Shetlands are made of sterner stuff than television people. What a surprise! Hey. No, don't ruin it, Goosey. We can still get a valiant second. So there's nothing to this Shetland business then. Owning a chateau, I don't know what you're all moaning about. It's easy. But it doesn't cost a fortune either.
I'm going solo now.
Goose has gone rogue.
I think you can do it. I think you can do it from there. Look.
You know what they say, teamwork.
Oh no, don't say that. Oh no!
No, it's okay. I think we can... I'm going to go for it, Goosey, because I think what's going to happen is...
There'll be one little strip.
I think that will just be the strip. Oh yeah, oh my god.
Was it breaking the wood?
Yes, put a little bit of wood.
Don't worry, it's fine. Just sand it down.
Right, we're selling the chateau now.
Yeah, it's ruined, broken. Tom!
I've ruined the chateau.
Let's put it all in the sun.
Yeah.
Sabotage.
Sabotage. Goose charge.
Good effort.
Very good.
How does it feel to come in second?
Story of my life. Actually, I'd take that as a win normally. Second for me is, you know, an extraordinary success story. Percy, you've made my day. He does love it. Chateau DIY cameraman, Dom, and my cat.
Welcome to Jane's Find of the Day with Jane.
Hello and welcome to this week's Find of the Day at Château de Pican. Today I'm talking about these glasses. We found them in the kitchen and my first thought was, well, they're quite bright. I know I'm sitting in a room with lots of bright decor, but they're a bit bright for my taste. I'm more sober with my glasses choice normally. My tableware would normally not be so brightly coloured, but they were quite interesting as well. And I pretty much presumed that they were not valuable, but it's a little bit intriguing because I just did not know. And there are glasses that look very similar to these that are described as old Baccarat diamond pattern glasses, and they just look identical. So I was a little bit intrigued. And of course, if they were, then they would be very valuable indeed, because they would be from the 1890s. They would be proper crystal glasses. However, come back after the break and I'll tell you.
It was Wednesday afternoon, and out of the blue, a lorry and a digger arrived. We thought they'd just been coming for a final survey of the site, and they did indeed want to confirm the placement and depth of the pool, the trench and the terracing, but we hadn't expected them to break ground. We were absolutely delighted when they started levelling the area, ready for a planned dig proper in the morning. Nothing could stop us now, or so we thought. We'd spent the whole day squinting at clear skies, waiting for a thunderstorm that never darkened the horizon. However, as the diggers stopped work for the evening, a few drops began to fall. We could see dark clouds to the west. We were short on supplies, and despite the warning we'd just received about an imminent severe storm, Rory thought it would be fine to pop to the supermarket. As we arrived, the heavens opened in a way we'd never seen before.
Huge hailstones fell like someone had emptied a giant box of golf balls at 12,000 feet. We took refuge in the last spot in the sheltered car park. We couldn't leave the car without risking concussion. I opened the window briefly and was instantly battered by ricocheting hail.
Thankfully, the storm only lasted about 10 minutes. When we'd arrived, the temperature had been 31 degrees Celsius. Once the storm had moved on, it had dropped to 18.5 degrees.
The hail almost flash melted in places and the roads were turned into rivers. As we drove home, the extent of the damage was becoming clear. Unsheltered cars were dented all over. The trees had been shredded under the sheer force of the hailstones. We wondered with dread what damage may have been caused at the chateau. Well, the chateau hasn't escaped the hailstones either. They've mostly melted now, but that's still bigger than any hailstone I've ever seen in England, and it's probably half melted. I don't know if you can see, but it seems to be made up of, like 50 littler hailstones all stuck together. More importantly though, the tomatoes look to have survived unscathed. Here's my damage investigation spaniel. Yeah, he didn't want a lot of rain on the site. We didn't want a trench full of water.
We'd been lucky, but with the grounds now soaked and the newly dug trench full of water, would they even want to start digging in the morning? The next morning, the sun returned as if nothing had happened. The same could not be said of the ground. The digger crew had already expressed concern about finding groundwater during the dig, and these worries would now be heightened because although the storm had been short-lived, it had rained most of the night.
So, a little bit of an update. At about 8 o'clock this morning, the chaps turned up to, I guess, start digging. And Jane was still getting ready, so I was dealing with them, but their English is probably worse than my French, and my French is pretty terrible. So we couldn't really communicate. But I just got on with feeding the horses, and then I asked them, is it okay? And I sort of got a round of Gallic shrugs. So another lorry turned up, and I guess that lorry is here to take all the spoil away when they dig. Anyway, I went inside because there was not much I could do. I couldn't communicate with them. And then when Jane was ready, I said, let's go out and talk to them. So we came back out, and the digger had gone, and the pickup truck that they were in had gone. All they've left is a bit of equipment and 2 lorries. So we're not sure what's happening. We're not sure if they're going to come back this morning, or I have no idea. I've absolutely no idea. And we have Chateau DIY coming any minute now to film the swimming pool being dug. And there's no swimming pool being dug. So I don't know what's going on. I'll update you later. The moment that perhaps none of you have been waiting for.
Well, you won't be surprised to hear that they are not crystal glasses, and one of the telltale signs is that there are seams, quite obvious seams, particularly in the base, and a few sort of slightly obvious lumps associated with the moulding process. I think it's described as pressed glass, which is to do with a mould, but maybe you make it out of different sections. But yeah, there's definitely a seam there. These have definitely been moulded. They are not cut glass, but they've been made to look like it. So you kind of get the aesthetics in everyday wear. So I believe these are made in Portugal, and I think they've been sold in various places, London and Paris. So I think they're quite highly regarded, but they are probably worth in the region of maybe $10 each, something like that, maybe a little more. Whereas if they had been from the French design house back from the 1890s, they would be worth hundreds of dollars, maybe $400 each or for a pair. Anyway, much, much more. So they're not that, but that just means that we can use them for every day, and they are quite striking. People who've watched my decor will not be surprised to know that I think this one is my favourite. But yeah, they're nice, and we don't have to be overly careful with them, which is good.
Thankfully, after about an hour, they reappeared and got straight on with the dig. Our worries were somewhat alleviated as the big spade struck earth and gouged out 1-ton scoops of clay soil. But would they later strike groundwater and down tools? I'd also been asked if there might be any underground water or drainage pipes. Given that Rory had bypassed the previous mains pipework, I'd felt confident that even if there were any old pipes under there, it wouldn't matter if they were cut. But we didn't know if there might be old electrical cables that fed the cottage, although this had seemed reasonably unlikely. Meanwhile, I took advantage of the cooler weather to do some planting, and Lucy very sweetly offered to help.
That's quite satisfying, isn't it? It's gone to its little bed. Do you do much gardening? No, I really don't, but that's because I don't have a garden in London. I think if I had a little one, I would like it. Yeah, good. It's fun. Or like, I want to get some nice pots for my windowsill. Lots of lilies. We're in the barrel, please. Do the dogs come and sit with you when you plant it?
It's more the cats.
Is it?
But we can't really, if you let the dogs out, they just get up to naughty tricks. So you've got to,
Yeah.
first of all, they try to eat all the cat food,
Yeah.
and then they run off.
Yeah.
So they don't stay with you. They're not very good company. They're just a massive distraction, unfortunately. But the cats will. They'll lie down and hang out. We're just planting some magapanthus, some African lilies. This variety apparently flowers all summer, so it's brilliant. So we had a hailstorm yesterday in the middle of summer, and it's bashed some of the roses. So I was just staking with it. Meanwhile, Goosey Lucy is helping with planting up some perennials, some scabious and some more agapanthus, which aren't in flower yet.
What was most striking was the precision with which the digger was operated. Monsieur Cibre was inch perfect in his technique, using a skill honed over decades in the trade, not only in manoeuvring the digger arm and the digger itself, but also in how he created crisp vertical sides and a crisp level base, with all the distances and levels constantly being checked by his able assistant using a rotary laser level. As the day wore on, the hole got wider and deeper, and there was absolutely no sign of groundwater. Phew. And as quickly as they had arrived, once the work was finished, they left, leaving us with a perfect pool-shaped hole in the ground.
As always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.